My kids. We are discussing our chapter number 4, that is reproductive health, right? And in the reproductive health, in the last lecture, we talked about few diseases and which were the few sexual transmitted diseases, right? Which were caused by bacteria as well as virus. So here in this particular lecture, we are going to finish these sexually transmitted diseases. So I will discuss AIDS, genital herpes and genital warts with you today. And AIDS I'm going to discuss little in the explanation mode. Complete explanation we will discuss here. AIDS, as everyone knows, the expanded form of AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, right? And it is not at all a bacterial disease. The causative agent, the pathogen who causes this disease, that is basically it is a syndrome, right? We call it as a syndrome. I will tell you in a minute that why we call it as a syndrome. It is caused by single stranded RNA virus. Be careful बच्चों, because in hepatitis virus the DNA, the genetic material of virus was double standard DNA. So ये छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं जो हम मिस कर देते हैं. एड्स का जो वायरस है उसके पास RNA एज द जेनेटिक मटेरियल है और RNA वो भी सिंगल स्टैंडर्ड है, राइट? सो इट इज़ हैविंग the causative agent who caused this syndrome, that is single stranded RNA virus. It means the genetic material of this virus is RNA. So those viruses which have RNA as the genetic material, they are known as retroviruses. And we know that as in the normal cases, whenever we discuss this, we always say that from DNA RNA is formed, mRNA is formed, and from mRNA protein is formed. That is how information transfers from DNA to in the form of protein. DNA to mRNA when formed, then it is known as transcription. When mRNA to protein is formed, then it is known as translation, and this is known as, the process is known as central dogma. But here though now we are knowing that our genetic material is RNA. So many children think that this RNA directly change into protein, but bacho, this does not happen in that way. There is only and only one channel through which the information can be flow, that is particularly fixed, and that is always from DNA. So if any organism who is having the genetic material as RNA, it first that change into the information goes into the DNA. And here for this, when RNA again change into DNA, there is a very special enzyme is used in this technique, and that is known as reverse transcription. Process is known as reverse transcription, and enzyme is known as reverse transcriptase. After that, once DNA is formed, then it change into mRNA, and then it change into protein. So you can definitely say that the AIDS virus, that is your HIV virus, it has a very special enzyme, and that special enzyme is known as reverse transcriptase. Why? Because the genetic material is single stranded RNA. That is why it has a very special enzyme. Now if we talk about the structure of this virus who cause AIDS, now as we know that this one is having a very special enzyme, right? So here is our protein, because there are two only major things which any virus has, that is the protein code, and that protein coat, that protein covering, it is known as protein capsid. And inside this protein capsid there is the genetic material, which is the single stranded RNA, and on this single stranded RNA there is the enzyme very special enzyme, and this enzyme is known as reverse transcriptase, which is found in all retroviruses. Now, there is another special layer around the protein in case of this AIDS virus, and that coat has special type of glycoproteins. This outer coat has special type of glycoproteins, and these glycoproteins, they are GP120, and these are the outer glycoproteins. They are antigenic. Antigenic means this GP120 glycoprotein, which are present on the outer covering of the virus, they are acting as antigen. But the problem is, when this virus it enter into our body does not produce antibody. Usually हमारे body का क्या main phenomena होता है कि if any antigen is detected or any foreign particle is detected in the body, our body start producing antibodies, right? यही हमारी body का phenomena होता है. Now we are saying that outer coat of this virus has GP120, which act as antigenic. But the reality is, when this virus enter into the body, our body does not produce antibody. It means something has happened in this structure. Actually what happened is बच्चों कि ये जो outer protein GP120 है, this is covered with the another layer. It is masked. बेसिकली इसके ऊपर एक और लेयर अटैच होती है विच कवर दिस GP120. सो दिस GP120 रिमेन मास्क. इट्स लाइक कि अगर ये पोर्शन है इसको किसी ने कवर करके इसके इफेक्ट को मास्क कर लिया है, छुपा लिया है. मास्क का मतलब होता है छुपा लेना, जैसे लोग अपना चेहरा पे मास्क लगा लेते हैं, छुपा लेते हैं. सो दिस GP120 also is masked with the another layer. That is the reason when this enter into this virus, enter into our body does not recognize this outer antigen and it does not produce antibody. And this layer which cover this GP120, it is not antigenic at all. तो हमारी body को it is non-antigenic, it is a normal layer. So now the question is, when do our body but produce antibodies against this virus? थोड़ा सा तो वो produce करती है, but when? As antigen थोड़े टाइम पीरियड के लिए जब ये एंटीजन हमारी बॉडी में एक्सपोज्ड होता है, एक्चुअली ये एंटीजन बहुत 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 कम टाइम के लिए एक्सपोज्ड होता है, एंड दैट इज द पीरियड ऑफ द टाइम when virus start infecting our host. When this virus it start infecting the main host cell. Otherwise, when it is entering into our body, this GP120, it is already covered with another layer, so our body does not recognize. For our body, this is never a foreign body, so our body does not produce antibody. So we will discuss it in a few minutes that how does this infection happens. But before that, let's talk about little history. First case of AIDS, it was reported in the year 1981, right, in USA. And first case in the world, it was reported in 1981 in the USA. First case in India, it was reported in 1986. So you have to, इस चैप्टर में बहुत सारी नंबर्स एंड फिगर्स हैं बच्चे, तो यू हैव टू कीप ऑन रिवाइजिंग दैट. First case was reported in 1981 in USA, and in India it was in 1986. December 1st is observed as the World AIDS Day. In that day, basically particular organizations, they discuss that what are the harmful effects, how you can prevent, how you can save yourself, keep them yourself safe from this syndrome. The symbol which they use, this organization, the which basically celebrate the World AIDS Days, that is the red ribbon like structure. It's a cross, it's a red ribbon made with red ribbon. Symptoms, okay, now let's talk about the symptoms when a person is having this virus. Actually, this virus cause in the starting very common symptoms are observed: mild fever, very mild infection, loss of weight. That is why most of the time these symptoms, they are ignored by a person, because person thinks that okay, fever can be due to some infection, or there can be loss of weight in the many other diseases also. But later on, when infection becomes severe and more severe, then cancer also, right? Initially stage, sometimes it is difficult to detect this virus from the symptoms, because these symptoms are very 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 common symptoms. But later on, when it become more severe, then you cannot ignore this type of syndrome. Now let us find out that why these types of syndrome, mild fever, mild infection. See, we are saying that this virus, it has an antigenic property which is called GP120, right? Glycoprotein. Now, in our body, this is our body, that is our we are calling them ourselves as host. Suppose, because virus stays inside a host, so for this virus, host is human body. In our body, there are the immune system cells which are called helper T cells, right? These helper T cells, they further produce help in the stimulation of B lymphocytes. There are two types of immunities. One is the cell mediated immunity, in which cells, they are responsible for the immune system, and other is the antibody mediated immunity, in which antibodies are the main reason to give immunity. So this is cell mediated immunity, in which helper T cells, they activate B lymphocytes, right? Now on these cells, there is present a protein which is called CD4 protein, right? On these helper T cells, this CD4 protein is present. Now this CDGP120, it comes in contact with this CD4 protein, which is usually present on the CD4 cells. These all are the immune system cells. Now GP120 of HIV and CD4 of immune system cells, they interact, and that is the time when the mask which is present on the GP120, that is gone. This is the time, this is a very 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 short period of time when GP120 interact with CD4 proteins. That time the mask is gone, and this is the time when virus moves into host cell. The RNA, it transfer into the host cell. Now helper cells, helper T cells, major function is they help B lymphocytes to produce more and more antibodies. Now inside the host cell, this virus start multiplying, right? And when it start multiplying, this host cell can rupture, and when this host cell can rupture, on this host cell there are present helper T cells. These helper T cells, they will also rupture, and if helper T cells, they are gone, no one will be able to activate B cells, and there will be no activation of B cells means no antibodies. Look again here very carefully. This is the human body, and in human body our immune system cell has main helper T cells, and these helper T cells, they help B lymphocytes to produce antibodies, right? So now when GP120, there is a specific proteins are present which are basically a very good recognition for the antigen. So these CD4 proteins, when they interact with GP120, that is the time when this HIV virus RNA, it enter into the host cell. That time when they both interact, virus enter into होस्ट सेल. अब जैसे ही वायरस का जो जेनेटिक मटेरियल है, कौन सा जेनेटिक मटेरियल है, सिंगल स्टैंडर्ड आरएनए, अब ये कहाँ पे आ गया है, होस्ट सेल के अंदर. इट विल मल्टीप्लाई करके इतनी ज़्यादा कॉपीज़ बना लेगा ये कि द सेल विल रप्चर. और जैसे जैसे सेल्स रप्चर होते जाएंगे, किसी भी पर्सन के हेल्पर टी सेल्स भी रप्चर हो जाएंगे. और हेल्पर टी सेल्स, they are the major cells of our immune system. That is why person's immune system start becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. Less helper cells, starting में क्या होता है, less helper cells are destroyed. तो इन्फेक्शन भी जो दिखती है वो माइल्ड फीवर के साथ दिखती है. बट जैसे जैसे मोर डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ हेल्पर टी सेल्स डन, more severe infection is observed. So this is caused by the HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus, and the name of the syndrome is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Many times I ask my kids that why it is known as syndrome, because here the whole immune system is getting compromised. So not only one infection, lot of complications are seen, and when multiple infections or complications are associated, then we give it a term syndrome, because it is not affecting us any particular organ, and it is targeting the whole immune system. That is why it is known as a syndrome, right? When we say when a person, most of the times we never say the person is having AIDS, we always use the term person is HIV positive. It means the person is having the virus, but disease is not caused at that time. The moment there is helper T cells, they are destroyed at with the minimum number are left only in the body. That time we say the person is having AIDS. The another dangerous thing about this virus is that this virus is transplacental. In my last lecture I also told you that this virus, those viruses which can cross the placenta, they are known as transplacental, and this virus also can cross placenta. So if pregnant female is affected, then this virus can cause the damage to fetus also. So you have to be very careful about the structure. Once you are going to understand this structure, you can easily understand that why we are saying that this syndrome is basically affecting our immune system, right? This aid is associated, that is why the names are given, because this weakens our immune system. That is why we say human immunodeficiency virus. It makes our immune system very, very disturbed, and the name of that syndrome is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. The next last two other diseases are genital herpes and genital warts. These are again viral diseases. In genital herpes, the causative agent is type to herpes simplex virus, HSV, herpes simplex virus. And symptom is that there are the watery blisters, छोटी छोटी outgrowths जो हैं, sometimes blisters, छोटे छोटे ऐसे blisters जो हैं वो जेनिटेलिया पे, आउटर जेनिटेलिया पे, एक्सटर्नल जेनिटेलिया पे नज़र आने लग जाते हैं. और जैसे क्योंकि ये filled है, watery filled है, so when they rupture, when these blisters rupture, then this virus spreads to the other parts of the body. Now we said that these watery blisters, they mostly are present on the external genitalia. So when a new baby is born, so during the time of delivery, if mother is having these blisters in the genitalia, and if this blister ruptures, this virus can affect or spread to a newborn, and in 60% of cases newborn die with this virus, right? So genital herpes is basically, it is a HSV virus. It is a sexually transmitted virus, right? So that is why it is a sexually transmitted disease which infect specifically on the external genitalia. Another the disease sexual transmitted is, that is genital warts. Genital warts, it is a causative agent is human papilloma virus, HPV. ह्यूमन पैपिलोमा वायरस की जो फैमिली होती है, ये बहुत एक आउटग्रोथ सी निकल आती हैं कई बार हमारे बहुत सारे एरियाज़ में. सो दीज वॉट्स, दे आर बेसिकली आउटग्रोथ, स्मॉल firm skin which comes out, bumps on the skin. And in genital wart, these outgrowths, they are specifically seen on the external genitalia, like on penis in case of males, on labia minora, in labia majora in case of females. And why they are so dangerous? This HPV, that is your human papilloma virus, it can cause cancer of cervix also, which is known as cervical cancer also, most of the very common cancer in case of women. Also it is responsible for the tumor formation in external genitalia as well as other parts. That is why in the last lecture also I always said that prevention is always better than cure, because these all are sexually transmitted diseases. They transmit through the sexual intercourse, that it is always better to take safety to get to keep away from these viruses, because few of these viruses, they are very dangerous for the human body, right? So this is all about the complete diseases. The next I will take about the in next lecture we will talk about only and only about the ARTs, assisted reproductive technology, and that will be our last part of this